friends, it's Allison Simpson with Summit Real Estate and this week's Shoutout Saturday. Today I am here in front of the historic Mint restaurant on Blue River Parkway. You've probably seen it if you have ever driven through Silverthorne. And right now it's crazy with all this big construction that's going on, this 4th Street crossing. We'll give you more on that info and a project later. But the Mint has been here for nobody knows how long. Well, of course, somebody knows how long. Actually, I know. Yeah, I did a little research. I know that this is the oldest restaurant in Colorado. Surprise, huh? I've been very curious about it lately with all this construction going on. And it reminds me of that Disney movie called Up. Have you seen it? The one about the old man who lives in the little house and has all the big skyscrapers built around him. The Mint looks pretty small in comparison to these big buildings that are going in. It is a historic building and interesting part of Colorado history. Are you ready for a little history lesson? Let's go take a look inside. The Mint is a popular restaurant specializing in steaks and other meats that customers can actually grill themselves. But the bar is where the patrons wait to have a drink, wait for their tables. It's been through more Summit County history than any living person in Summit County. The history of the Mint dates back to 1862, 1 year after Colorado became a U.S. territory and 14 years before it was even admitted as a state. Back then it was known as Jack Ryan's Saloon, and it serviced the thirsty miners in the small mining village known as Kokomo. Shortly after there, for unknown reasons, the saloon was moved to the city of Frisco. Around 1862, the Denver and the Rio Grande Railroad was being built in the valley and made Dillon a new hotspot. As the railroads brought an influx of people to the new town, Dillon began attracting several homes and businesses from Frisco, and in 1882, Jimmy Ryan's Saloon became a Dillon resident. During its stint in Dillon, the saloon eventually became known as the Mint, and it was a popular gathering spot for locals. The Mint was a popular bar and a brothel where patrons could play cards and pool, and the girls were always present to spice things up. It's still a great bar, but I am pretty sure the brothel is out of business. I hope so anyway. Despite being twice dismantled and moved, the forces of progress were yet again to influence the Mint, uprooting the saloon from its resting spot of almost 80 years in Dillon. It began in 1914 when the idea came about for a dam to divert the Blue River through the mountains to Denver. This idea became a plan when, from 1929 to 1940, the town was devastated by the Great Depression, and residents found themselves unable to pay their taxes, which allowed the Denver Water Board to step in and buy a large portion of Dillon. The residents, free from their tax burden, then found themselves kind of out of the frying pan and into the fire. And in 1956, the Denver Water Board told them they had to sell and vacate the town by 1961. Dillon, and with it the Mint, was soon right in the middle of where Denver planned on damming 85 billion gallons of water. Despite many attempts to fight eviction, the residents of Dillon really had no leg to stand on, as the Denver Water Board owned pretty much everything and was dead set on damming the Blue River. So the old town of Dillon was destroyed. Residents of the town wanted to relocate nearby, so they moved to the town of Dillon. Others moved a little further south to the then new town of Silverthorne. Only certain structures were deemed important enough to move. The Mint, fortunately, was one of these, and it was relocated to its current Silverthorne site. Tom Ricci and Ken Gansman bought the Mint in mid-1984, and both immediately had an appreciation for the Mint's rich history. Soon thereafter, a little old lady, so they say, walked in and told them it was a saloon and a brothel back in the old days. She said she played cards with the girls that worked here while her father came in for a beer or two. Ricci and Gansman were very concerned with establishing the structure as a historical landmark and restoring many of its original aspects. Around 1990, they removed the drywall in order to finish the upstairs and discovered hand-hewn logs underneath. They decided to keep the logs uncovered to accent the historical significance. And during 1984, when they were remodeling, Nancy Ricci totally restored the oak bar, which had been covered up with a brown enamel. So now the Mint is as close to its original incarnation as it will ever be. The vibe here is also as close to an Old West saloon as you can get. Stop in for a drink or dinner and imagine what it must have been like some 150 plus years ago, before cars and planes and phones and so many of the things we take for granted. I think you'll be surprised and happy to know you're standing on the very same floorboards and the very same bar that people were using 150 years ago. It's pretty cool.